17 years ago, the world lost Michael Jackson. And yet, for millions of people, it still doesn't feel like he's truly gone. People who never met him, who never spoke to him, stood in the same room as him, or even lived through the height of his fame, still feel emotional when they hear his music, watch old performances, or see documentaries about his life. The same thing happens with figures like Princess Diana, Robin Williams, Kobe Bryant, or David Bowie. Some people cry. Some feel an emptiness they can't quite explain. Others feel as though they lost someone who mattered deeply to them. And the strange thing is, they know they never actually knew that person. So why does it hurt so much? Why can someone we've never met leave behind grief that feels completely real? The answer says something important about human psychology, emotion, and the way connection works in the modern world. Psychologists refer to these bonds as parasocial relationships. A parasocial relationship is a one-sided emotional connection we form with someone who doesn't personally know us. Usually a celebrity, performer, public figure, influencer, or even a fictional character. Even though the relationship is not mutual, the emotions attached to it often are very real. Our brains are not designed to separate emotional connection from physical proximity as clearly as we think. If someone consistently appears in our lives, through music, films, interviews, performances, stories, or moments that emotionally affect us, our mind begins to treat them as emotionally familiar. That familiarity matters more than actual access. You can spend years emotionally connected to someone's work, their voice, their personality, their struggles, or the comfort they gave you during difficult periods of your life. Over time, they stop feeling like a distant public figure and start feeling psychologically present. That's why people don't simply admire certain celebrities. They feel attached to them, and attachment is what creates grief. A song can become attached to a breakup. A performance can become tied to childhood memories. A voice can become associated with safety, comfort, hope, or escape during painful moments in life. For many people, Michael Jackson wasn't just entertainment. He was part of the emotional background of their life. His music played during childhood, during family gatherings, during heartbreak, during lonely nights, during moments where people felt inspired, understood, hopeful, or alive. And because the human brain stores emotion alongside memory, losing the person connected to those memories can feel like losing part of yourself. That grief is not imaginary. Neurologically, the brain responds to emotional attachment in remarkably similar ways, whether the relationship is direct or parasocial. The emotional centers involved in bonding, empathy, and loss still activate. In other words, your brain doesn't fully care that you never met them. It cares that they mattered to you. And for some people, the connection becomes even deeper because celebrities often represent ideals we desperately want to believe in. Hope, creativity, kindness, freedom, strength, beauty, possibility. Certain figures become symbolic. They represent entire emotional worlds. With someone like Michael Jackson, many fans weren't only connected to the music, they connected to the feeling he created, the energy, the imagination, the sense that the world could still contain wonder. Songs like Heal the World, Earth Song, or Man in the Mirror made people feel emotionally seen. His performances carried emotion in a way that felt larger than entertainment. Even decades later, people still describe watching him perform and feeling something difficult to explain, as though joy, sadness, vulnerability, and hope were all being communicated at once. That emotional intensity leaves an imprint. And when someone who carried that emotional weight dies, the grief can feel surprisingly personal. This becomes even stronger when people watch documentaries, interviews, or biographical films. There's a psychological reason for that too. Films compress an entire human life into a short emotional experience. Within 2 hours, viewers witness childhood, success, loneliness, pressure, heartbreak, triumph, isolation, vulnerability, and death. The brain processes stories emotionally, not just intellectually. So when we sit and watch someone's life unfold on screen, we begin to emotionally simulate their experiences. We imagine their fears, their exhaustion, their loneliness, their hopes. We stop seeing an untouchable icon and start seeing a human being, and that changes everything. Because once people emotionally humanize a celebrity, grief deepens. Watching Robin Williams make millions laugh while privately struggling with pain feels heartbreaking because we recognize the humanity underneath the image. Watching Princess Diana navigate relentless public pressure evokes empathy because people recognize vulnerability beneath fame. And with Michael Jackson, people often see someone carrying extraordinary brilliance alongside extraordinary pressure. The perfectionism, the loneliness, the scrutiny, the childlike sensitivity, the desire to heal people through art. Once audiences emotionally connect with those human qualities, the loss no longer feels distant. It feels immediate. For many fans, it genuinely feels like losing someone they loved. And that word, love, is important here. People sometimes dismiss celebrity grief as obsession or exaggeration. But emotionally, many fans are describing something sincere. Not romantic love, human love. The kind that forms when someone consistently helps you survive emotionally difficult periods of life. Music especially creates unusually powerful psychological bonds because it interacts directly with memory and emotion. A song can instantly transport someone back to a specific age, relationship, room, or feeling. That's why hearing an artist after they die can suddenly feel overwhelming. You're not only hearing music, you're reconnecting with versions of yourself that existed when that music carried you through life. For longtime fans, losing someone like Michael Jackson can feel like losing a part of childhood, adolescence, or even identity itself. People often say things like, "It felt like the world changed after he died," or "It felt like a light went out." Psychologically, those statements make sense. Some public figures become woven into the emotional architecture of an era. They shape culture so deeply that their absence creates the feeling that a chapter of life has closed permanently. And grief becomes bigger than the individual person. People begin mourning time itself, the era, the feeling, the innocence attached to certain memories, the version of the world that existed while that person was alive. Nostalgia plays a huge role in this. Human beings are naturally nostalgic creatures. We attach emotional meaning to periods of life, and celebrities often become symbols of those periods. Sometimes people even feel nostalgia for eras they never personally lived through. Younger generations discovering Michael Jackson today often feel sadness knowing they will never experience him live. They watch old concert footage and emotionally imagine what it must have felt like to be there. And the brain is remarkably capable of emotionally simulating experiences it never actually had. That imagined connection still creates genuine emotional longing. There's also something deeply human about collective grief. When a celebrity dies, millions of people begin sharing memories, tributes, clips, interviews, songs, and emotions all at once. Social psychologists call this emotional contagion. Emotions spread through groups. Seeing other people grieve validates and intensifies our own emotional reactions. Suddenly, the loss feels communal rather than private. People gather online. They hold vigils. They share stories about where they were when they heard the news. Strangers comfort strangers because they are connected by the same emotional experience. And in those moments, celebrity grief stops being about fame. It becomes about human connection, about shared feeling, about millions of people collectively acknowledging that someone mattered to them. Another reason these losses affect people so deeply is because extraordinary individuals often embody possibility. When someone possesses unusual creativity, talent, empathy, or emotional power, people project meaning onto them. They become reminders of what human beings are capable of. That's why losing icons can feel psychologically unsettling. It feels like losing a source of inspiration, a source of beauty, a source of emotional energy. Fans of Michael Jackson often describe him as someone who made the world feel more imaginative and emotionally alive. His performances created moments where millions of strangers felt connected to the same emotions simultaneously. That kind of impact is rare. And when rare people disappear, the absence feels larger than ordinary loss. There's also another layer people don't always talk about openly. Sometimes grief becomes tangled with a sense of injustice. Celebrity lives are often surrounded by controversy, media narratives, public judgment, and misunderstanding. When people feel someone was treated unfairly or reduced to headlines instead of humanity, it can intensify emotional attachment after their death. Psychologists sometimes describe this as an empathetic injustice response. People grieve not only the person, but the suffering they believe that person endured. Fans feel protective. They feel heartbreak over perceived cruelty, exploitation, or misrepresentation. And because emotional attachment already exists, defending that person begins to feel personal, too. But underneath all of this, the neuroscience, the nostalgia, the symbolism, the psychology, there's something simpler. Human beings are built for emotional connection. We are storytellers by nature. We emotionally enter the lives of others. We imagine their experiences. We empathize with their pain. We carry pieces of people we've never met. That ability is part of what makes humans human. It's why books move us, why films stay with us, why songs can heal us, why strangers can change our lives without ever knowing our names. Celebrity grief is ultimately evidence of empathy. It proves that emotional connection can transcend physical distance, and science supports this. Mirror neurons in the brain activate when we observe emotion in others, allowing us to internally experience parts of what we see. Dopamine and oxytocin pathways reinforce emotional attachment and feelings of familiarity. The amygdala, which processes emotionally significant experiences, responds strongly to loss, memory, and emotional meaning, even within parasocial relationships. The brain does not fully separate emotional significance from physical presence. If someone emotionally shaped your life, your brain recognizes their absence. That's why the grief feels real, because to your emotional world, it is real. And perhaps that's why certain people continue to live on long after they're gone. Not only through music, films, interviews, or performances, but through emotional memory. Through the comfort they gave people, the inspiration they sparked, the hope they represented, the moments they helped people survive. For many fans, Michael Jackson represented compassion, imagination, vulnerability, and emotional honesty on a scale the world rarely sees. People didn't just admire him, they felt something through him. And when someone touches millions of lives emotionally, grief becomes unavoidable when they leave. But grief itself says something beautiful. It means connection happened, even across distance, even across generations, even across lives that never physically met. So when people cry for someone they never knew personally, it isn't irrational. It's deeply human. Because sometimes another person's art, energy, kindness, or presence becomes part of our emotional story. And when they disappear, a part of that story changes forever. That's why we grieve celebrities we've never met. Not because fame tricks us into caring, but because human beings are capable of forming real emotional bonds through memory, empathy, imagination, and shared experience. And sometimes, those invisible emotional connections become powerful enough to last a lifetime. I hope this video helped you understand your feelings more clearly. Many people are thinking deeply about Michael Jackson again. With the biopic now released and widely watched, his music is being rediscovered by new generations, while longtime fans revisit emotions they haven't felt in years. Conversations about his legacy, media treatment, and the accusations surrounding his life are bringing up complex feelings. Sometimes those emotions are hard to process, and that's okay. If you feel sadness, let it come. If you need to cry, cry. Listen to the music that matters to you. Talk to someone you trust. You may be surprised how many others feel the same. At the heart of this is connection. Michael Jackson left an imprint on the world. His creativity and artistry touched millions, and it's natural to feel something when his presence is revisited. Maybe grief is another way of honoring impact. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care of yourself. You're not alone in this.